I am proud to bring in Aron, AMC's chairman and CEO, who joins us first and I think maybe only on CNBC. Adam, it's always great to have you back. How you been?
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, David. I'm great. As you know, we just reported a fabulous quarter, way ahead of market expectations. We would really like to think, after this very long 16 months of COVID, that we can see recovery in sight ahead.
Well, let's go over that. Right now, in the conference call, you talk about the idea that you've laddered the debt, which is very good, meaning that there's no big payment to do right now. Obviously, you've lowered the cash burn. It's much better. But then, in the call, you say, look, I'd like to raise capital. Others do, too. But you've obviously taken both informal polls because you're on Twitter and spoken to a lot of shareholders. And you're saying, you know what? Let's not do that. But the previous guest, James Chanos, comes on and says, Cinemark is so much cheaper. And then also, IMAX is so much cheaper. Why don't you just say, you know what, let's do convertible bonds. Let's do something that raises capital, given the fact that the stock's still very high.
Well, let's start and remind everyone how much capital we've raised in the last year and a half. Since April of 2020, AMC has brought in between $5 and $6 billion of capital, either from raising equity, raising debt, or getting concessions from lenders and other entities close to the companies like our landlords. And we ended the first quarter of 2021 with $1 billion of liquidity. That's cash and undrawn revolver. That compares to a company that was running out of cash during the height of the pandemic last winter. That's where we were in March of 2021. That $1 billion quarter-ending liquidity figure was the single highest quarter-ending liquidity figure that AMC's ever had in its more than 100-year history. Well, that record we set March 31. On June 30, thanks to having raised another $1.25 billion of equity in May and June, we ended with another record liquidity position at the end of the second quarter, June 30, of $2 billion. That actually was $2.023 or $2.024, but it was more than $2 billion. We beat the 100-year record for AMC by a full $1 billion. It was double where we were in March. So, yes, sure, I'd like always to amass the largest war chest I can get so that we can do things with it. But we do have the largest war chest that AMC has ever had. As for your question specifically about convertible bonds, we sold over 400 million shares between between September of 2020 and June of 2021. We actually don't have any shares left. So a convert is not an option until such time as the shareholders authorize more shares.
Right, but you did say you need to play offense. And then you went over multiple ideas in the conference call that need more capital that you said would be very successful. So I was confused because obviously playing offense could mean raising more capital. Or are you going to use a stock that many feel is inflated to start buying more than you already have? And you've made some great acquisitions.
Well, look, we have $2 billion of liquidity. That gives us plenty of capital to go on offense with. And for example, we said yesterday that we're adding somewhere between 5 and 10 very important theaters in the United States. We already announced specifically 2 in Los Angeles, which were the second and fifth highest grossing theaters in Los Angeles a few years back. These came to us from ArcLight Pacific Theaters, who did not resume operations as a result of COVID. We said we think we'll wind up with between 5 and 10 theaters just a few weeks from now. That's an example of playing offense. Another example of playing offense, we're going to get quite involved in the world of cryptocurrency. We announced yesterday that we're going to be accepting Bitcoin as payment online for online purchases for AMC admissions and concessions. There's much more that we can do with cryptocurrency because we got a big population, an avid population of customers, of transactions, of consumers. That's an example of playing offense. There are a whole lot more ideas. We said we were going to Go look at alternative programming. We just had our first 2 UFC fights that we showed at AMC theaters. Attendance was very strong. This month in August, we're showing our first 2 concert movies in ages with the artist Chance the Rapper and Halsey. So there are things that we can do. $2 billion is a nice cash hoard, the biggest we've ever had to play with. And as I said, we're the largest theater operator in the world. We're playing an offense. It is true that COVID put us on our heels for a year, but that's behind us now.
Okay, now you mentioned obviously the apes, which is this cohort of investors that is very excited about AMC stock. And you also mentioned something they want very much, the partnering with GameStop on a number of possible fronts. Now, how are those talks going? Have you sat down or Zoomed with Ryan Cohen, who is the seer of GameStop, to get something going?
Well, I think the irony here is I actually didn't say anything about the apes. You said something about the apes. I look at these millions of individual investors as who really came on the scene just in the last 6 months. They're the owners of my company. They don't work for me. I work for them. They're my bosses. And just like all professional management teams respond to the shareholders of their companies, we're certainly interested in the suggestions that are flowing to us from the owners of our company. One of the many
So you
suggestions.
talked to Ryan Cohen then? You've talked to Ryan Cohen?
No,
Why
what
not?
I said yes.
Isn't he a neighbor of yours?
What I said yesterday on our earnings call, when for the first time ever we took questions, most of the questions on our earnings call came from our individual shareholder owners rather than professional securities analysts, was that we've gotten a lot of good ideas flowing into the company from our company's owners. One of them was that we should partner with GameStop. I was asked if I was willing to do that. I said sounded like an interesting idea to me, and that I would reach out to GameStop. However, I also said yesterday that there have been no communications between GameStop and AMC as of yesterday afternoon.
Adam, it's David. Yeah, I brought that up as a kind of jokingly a couple of months ago right here. Funny how it's become something that perhaps could actually become a reality. I want to talk, though, more about reality itself. Adam, you've done a lot of things to navigate this company, to navigate it to calmer waters, and you need to be applauded for that. But, you know, today you're with this move up, the stock's going to be worth about $19 billion. You don't believe it's in your interest to tell your shareholders that, you know, you're still an exhibitor of product, right? Of movies typically, perhaps of other sporting events. Is there any path you could justify for having that kind of value given the financials on a fundamental basis, as we at least try to weigh them, that you're going to be able to produce even under the best of scenarios?
So guess what? I think all of us have been watching the financial markets for a very long time. And we can't always explain how the financial markets act. A market is a market. There are willing buyers, there are willing sellers. We made a very clear disclosure a few months ago that our stock was trading away from historic fundamentals. And we made no bones about that. But, you know, you at CNBC, and I have great respect for all of you there, you focus on our share price every day. What I focus on is running the company. And what I focus on is the recovery of the company. Ours was the company that was the strongest player in our industry on the planet in February of 2020. The COVID pandemic shut all of our theaters in 1,000 of them in 15 countries in the span of a week. Our revenues went from $450 million a month to $450,000 in a month. Our earnings went from reliably positive to non-existent. And as you say, we had to pull a lot of rabbits out of the hat.
And you did it, Adam. You did it. And you've detailed a lot of that in the last 10 minutes in terms of what you were able to do, and it's worthy of praise. But I still wonder. I mean, I'm looking at Loop Capital Markets. You know, they have $1 price target. Credit Suisse $1.55. even despite a $2.1 billion equity raise over the last year, we remain concerned about your leverage, the shrinking of the exclusive theatrical window, the number of screens relative to the long-term attendance trends. Nobody's worried you're going out of business, of course, and you've delayed all your debt repayments and things of that nature. But again, Adam, to understand the long-term fundamental strength of this franchise, it's being treated as though it's the greatest growth company of all time, and it's not.
Well, look, the same people who are putting us down now were writing with equal certainty 10 months ago that we were going out of business then. They've been wrong, and who knows what will happen. There's only one thing I'm certain of. Tomorrow, our share price will go up, it will stay the same, or it will go down. And as you just said, our focus is on building this company, taking it forward, improving its performance. That's exactly what we've done. Some people think heroically over the past year, and the same team that has paid attention to driving this company through, improving its fortunes going forward, is the same team that's going to take it forward from now. How the share price reacts to all that, we're all going to find out. We're all going to find out together.
I guess, but if I was in your position and I hit the lottery ticket of having the Reddit crowd kind of congregate around me and believe in my future and bid my stock up, man, I'd be selling a lot of stock, Adam. You've become an incredibly wealthy man over the last year. How do you view that and your ability to potentially monetize some of that wealth?
You talking about me personally?
Yeah.
Or your kids. Or your children. Your two children.
Because the company did monetize very much so.
They did. But what about you? What about you?
Hey, look, I've run this company for 5.5 years. I haven't sold a single share yet. I believed in its past. I believe in its present. I believe in its future. I did say on the earnings call yesterday that I hit my 67th birthday in September. At some point in time this winter, I suspect I need to diversify my assets a little bit, and I intend to file a 10b5-1 plan. But my focus isn't on my personal net worth. My focus is on restoring AMC to health and prosperity. This is a 101-year-old company. I want its next century.
You know what?
To be
Real quickly on
on
that basic idea, though, just let's get back to the fundamentals themselves. The theatrical window. I know you signed this new deal with Warner. Seems to be fairly important, but there are those who believe things have changed forever as a result of the pandemic, as a result of the growth of direct-to-consumer, and that movie theaters are going to become a less and less important way for the producers of that product to actually showcase what they have, and therefore you're not going to benefit as much as in the past.
Well, you're right. We signed a very important agreement with Warner Brothers. They experimented starting in December with going to the home simultaneously with theatrical release, and it was a 6-month experiment, and they've already abandoned that experiment because when I talk to studio executives across Hollywood, they tell me that the proven way to build billion-dollar movie franchises is to take it to theaters first.
But Adam, I paid $30 for Black Widow very willingly. It was dynamite. I watched it at home. I didn't have to pay the cost of that popcorn that you cost a fortune for. I didn't have to buy the Diet Coke because it was right there in my kitchen. And you know what? It was like one unbelievable opportunity. I had a big screen. Adam, I wish you had been with me. We would have had a dynamite time.
Guess what, Jim? If we'd gone to an AMC theater, we would have even had more of a dynamite time. And I'm going to tell you why. One of the major studios who took a film to the home early did a survey, and they found that people who watched that movie in the theater liked that movie twice as much as the people who watched that same movie at home. There are no concerns about piracy when movies are coming to our theaters, as there are concerns when movies are taken to the home. And as for this notion of people staying in the house, gee, I think if COVID's taught us anything at all, it's people want to get out of the house. Everybody has a kitchen, but people go to restaurants to eat. Not all the time, but they do. AMC and movie theaters, we've been competing against television sets for 75 years. People watch a lot of TV at home, but they also go to movie theaters. And I think that's because it's an event. They want to go out. They want to get out of the house. They want to be with other people. At a horror movie, they want to scream at the same time. At a comedy, they want to laugh at the same time. At a rom-com, a romantic comedy, they want to cry at the same time. There's a magic about going to a theater.
But you know what? I don't want to get COVID at the same time as these people with this Delta. I know you guys have done unbelievable, but I do not. I would prefer to sit at home, okay, with less risk of Delta than go out and have a risk of Delta and have unvaccinated people. Why not do what Frank Del Rio does at Norwegian, now allowed by a federal court, and ask us if we've been vaccinated so I can feel safer going to the movies?
Well, let's start a couple of places there because there's several important things in what you said. Number one, no one is a bigger proponent of vaccination than AMC. I said on this network 6 months ago, the most important man in the movie business was Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer. Because while I am quite optimistic about the future of AMC, the future of theatrical exhibition, despite all the concerns that you properly raised, we would be nowhere without vaccination. But the big difference between our country dealing with the Delta variant and our country dealing with the COVID virus last winter is that 57% of the U.S. population has been vaccinated already. And I'm hopeful that the Delta variant will remind the unvaccinated how important it is that they get vaccinated. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we spent a tremendous amount of effort working with Clorox and faculty from Harvard University's prestigious School of Public Health on our safe and clean protocols to make sure that we operate our theaters safely and cleanly. We were so far ahead of the rest, not just of the movie theater industry, but all of industry on air purification and upping the filtration in our HVAC systems, because we knew way back in May and June of last year that this virus was much more a respiratory spread. But last but not least, I happen to be on the board of Norwegian Cruise Line, which is an irony of given your question, Jim. And my hat's off to Frank Del Rio and the NCL. And
that's why I know, because you ran Norwegian.
Pardon me?
You ran Norwegian. That's why I thought you'd go for that one.
I was the CEO of Norwegian in 1993.
I know. Well, that's why I thought it was a good question. I got one more for you. Would you give me this? You're a showman. Hey, I've never afraid of being called a showman. Isn't Bitcoin a bit of a showman? Is that like a great way? I mean, if I came to the movie theater, I have to do it ahead of time, and I used Ethereum. I mean, why? I got it. You want it?
Well, we keep on hearing suggestions from our shareholders that we should start accepting cryptocurrency. And we found out that it was very easy for us to take cryptocurrency and take no balance sheet risk in the process, because we'll be involving third-party processors in the effort who will take the currency risk. So if people want to pay us in Bitcoin, they can pay us in Bitcoin. Having said that, as we learned more and more about cryptocurrency, cryptocurrency is quite an intriguing option for companies who have millions of consumers and hundreds of millions of transactions, and that's AMC. So there's something quite real here, and I also think that getting more active in cryptocurrency may be one of the ways to earn our market valuation that David was talking about earlier. If I can just say one thing, and then we're going to wrap up.
Adam, we got to go.
I understand
10 seconds,
why.
So make it quick.
I understand why you raised all the concerns about theatrical exhibition. I just want to remind you, movie theaters have been central to the cultural fabric of American life for 100 years, and we're going to remain central to the cultural fabric of American life for the next 100 years.
All right. Well, let me do this. Congratulations. You've done a great job. And you know how I feel. Privately and publicly, I will say that. Because your company would not have survived without your incredibly smart work and cooperation of the shareholders who understand exactly what you're trying to do, win for them. And I am congratulating you. Great job.
Thank you so much.